Hello again, America. My name is Guy Calisi, and this is the Older Bulls podcast. And I was inspired tonight to talk a little bit about intensity. Well, first, I want to give all of those people a trigger warning. I kind of need to wear shirts now that let people know what's coming when I come into a room. It says, "Anger keeps me warm." I have another one that says, "Intensity is a gift." In that vein, that's really what I'm going to be talking about tonight. I'm going to be talking about intensity as a gift rather than a curse. I think that being able to harness this thing that some people call intensity is truly something that we need to be able to do. And I've asked myself over the years, that feeling that you get when you meet somebody, where you get this energy or this vibe from this person. And, it can be negative or positive. It doesn't matter, but I really want to focus on the positive. There have been very few people in my life who I have gotten that feeling from. And it's intense. I mean, you can't miss it. In my case, it was mostly other men, and I think it was a father figure thing. Growing up without a dad in my house and hating my stepfather, all of that boohoo, sad story stuff. But you need what you need, right? And you're looking for what you're looking for, and I think it's important to recognize what you need and go get it, get after it. I think that's important. But the intensity thing that I was talking about was really brought to my attention a while back. A friend of mine who was from Tennessee and who prided himself in um, his chili and making a hot chili. He told me that I reminded him of this kind of a pepper. I think it was a baraka por pepper. I can't remember what it was, but it was a chili pepper, and it was from Trinidad. And he said it was a really small pepper, and he didn't need a lot of them in his big vat of chili to make it really hot and really spicy. I'm going to take these glasses off because it's creating a reflection there. So I'm like, yeah. So what's this story about? He said, well, Guy, you remind me of that little pepper because you're little, but you pack a punch, and you're so intense. And I didn't know how to take that at the time, and I am what I am. We are who we are. We've kind of came a certain way, and then all of life experiences that happen to us, that we engage in, that we choose, all of those things, that they shape us too. Our parents shape us, society shapes us. But I think his point was, we were talking about tattoos. That's what the conversation started as, and we were saying, if I get a tattoo, I have no tattoos on my body. I'm tat free. And he said, that's what you should get. You should get this little teeny tiny pepper. And I thought about it over the years, and so really what I want to talk about tonight was that whole idea, packing a punch, bringing something to the table. What do you bring to this table called life? In a couple of episodes previous to this, I talked about a friend of mine, Mike, who had an expression that was, don't be five, which means like you're right in the middle. That's mediocrity. Why would you choose to be that? Um, a lot of stuff goes along with being loud, and being intense. And I think in the PC culture that we're in right now, it's looked down upon. It's uh, people are intimidated by it. And one of the things that I always say to teachers when I went and I would consult, or I would give lectures, from New Zealand to Canada. I would say, hey, listen, all of these things that I'm going to share with you are my personal experiences, and they've worked for me. I'm going to share with you my successes, and I'm going to share with you my failures as well. But I'm going to speak as though I know what I'm talking about, because I do. I do know what I'm talking about, and I'm not ashamed of that. I speak as the, oh, why is he so cocky? Why is he so sure of himself? Because I am. But it doesn't mean that I think it's going to work for everybody. And I try to say that in the very beginning, just that this isn't for everybody. You know, Intensity isn't for everybody. And one of the questions that I had tonight when I was thinking about this whole thing was, are you born with it? This special thing, that allows you to walk into a room, talk to a group of people and connect with them. And not all of them, because there are going to be, all the time, there are going to be haters. And I know I've fallen prey to this myself. I'm not going to lie to any of you. I think I'm the funniest guy I know. And I know there's people funnier than me, but I don't care if people laugh at my jokes, because I'm being funny to entertain myself. If other people do, I love that too. I love to make people smile. I love to make people laugh. My father, was that kind of a guy. He would walk into the room, and he would walk into a room of people that he didn't know, and it was like he was the mayor. You know, everybody they were just drawn to him. And that was something that I internalized from my dad. I didn't spend a lot of time with him when I was growing up. But that was the one thing that I looked at and I said, I like that. That was something that I grabbed from him and I kept for myself. And so that intensity, like I was saying earlier, is a gift. You need to use it. I don't think you should be embarrassed. I don't think you should be ashamed of it. You're going to get smacked around. You're going to get slapped down, because there are going to be the haters who don't like it when people are confident and come off as, sounding like they know what they're talking about, because those are people who are insecure. And I'm not bashing them. It's just where they are. You can't let that affect or infect the way that you are. I had a dinner conversation with my kids a couple of nights ago about the power of words. And my father, when I was growing up, was very upset with Italian racial slurs, and I'm not going to, mention them. But I didn't get it. I didn't understand why he was so upset, when people would use those particular words. And I said, Dad, and this is when I was 12, 13 years old, naive, I get it. But I said, Dad, they're just words. And he was one generation away from off the boat from Italy, and I was two, so I was totally American. My dad was so close to it. So, that the emotional part of that, I get it. It got him upset. Because I'm sure he experienced some things that were more real than anything that I had experienced with those kinds of things. But, I was like, they're just words, Dad, and how can you let words control you? I didn't get it. And, and that's the way I feel about swearing too. I said this in another episode that, cussing and swearing, they're just words. They're for effect. They're for comedic effect. There are some comedians, like Seinfeld, who don't swear at all, and he's still funny to me. I mean, he's funny. But there are some comedians who are funny because of the way they cuss, and it's just funny. But as soon as you give those words power, then you've lost. And, what I want to instill in my children and in people everywhere is that you're in control of everything that's coming at you. There's this force field around you. You decide how strong that force field is. If it's weak, then stuff, penetrates it all of the time, and it goes right here to your heart, and it hurts you, and it becomes an emotional issue. But that's a choice. I believe that. I believe it. I will argue with people till the cows come home. And some people will say it's not a choice. Those words are just offensive. You should not ever say those words. I don't think there's words that we shouldn't be able to say ever. And, I said this in another episode too, that, I try really hard not to offend people, but I try harder not to be offended. And I think our world would be a better place if more people would just participate in that with me. So why don't you join me with that? In that. Okay, so a couple of other things I wanted to talk about was, the kind of energy that I'm talking about here is what we need more of as men in this country. I think we have too many men who are afraid, of their masculinity, to really exude their masculinity. I don't know how else to say it. Their special gift. I think intensity is something that we need to be teaching our young boys. It needs to be controlled. It can't be out of control. And when you're young adolescents and early adolescents, you're a young bull. It's hard. Those of you who know this story, the two bulls standing on the top of the hill, the older bull and the young bull. The young bull says, "Dad, let's run down and, get all those cows, and get one of those cows," actually, he says. And the older bull says, "Let's walk down and get all of them." So, you can adjust that story. I'm going to keep it PG-13 here. But that's what I'm talking about. I think this intensity and, anger is that kind of a thing to me. It's this intensity. If you have it, if you have this gift, then you need to share it. But you also need to be aware that you're going to get beaten down for it too. But you need to be able to take that beating. That's a part of it. Because I think that it's worth sharing. I went to my son's gym tonight. He's 15 and he boxes and he loves boxing, which is a great sport, for him. He's already got Dane Bramage, so it's perfect for him. But his coach there is a great guy. I think he's one of those guys who is really intense, and he grew up in boxing, and boxing saved his life, one of those stories. And I think he expects everybody else to feel the same way about it. But I don't think in lily white suburban Chicago area that most people are going to feel the same way about that. But it's what made him who he is. And so I get the approach, and the people that it touches, it really touches, but the other ones are just looking at him, like, well, I don't get it. I got to come 5 nights a week. Why are you telling me that I need to do this and work this hard? Well, it's what made him who he is, and I get it. But the intensity, I went in tonight and I talked to him and I said, listen, I just wanted to thank you for your intensity, because I think we need more of that. I think that our young boys need that. I think they've been being taught to be more girl-like, and that means, passive, and ignoring or trying to deny, what's really in them. And I think that's a mistake. I don't like the expression "boys will be boys," but everybody knows what that means, right? Boys are stupid. They leap before they look. They do dumb things. But I said this in my episode 12 or whatever, that that's what young boys were put on the planet for. To take risks, to take chances, to do stupid things, because nobody else would do it. In high school, I went to Maine North. Shout out to all the Maine North people out there. It's where they filmed Breakfast Club. Those of you who are into film trivia. But they were gonna be closing the school down in 1981, and I was a sophomore, and I wanted to letter in something. So I said to myself, what can I letter in? There's a point to this story, and I found out that diving was something that I could do, or at least have a chance of lettering in. So I went out for the diving team. I couldn't swim. I still can't swim. I swim like a rock. That's how I swim. And went out for the diving team. Coach Guilfoyle, great guy, taught me everything I knew. But the only thing that I had going for me is I was the only one who would try to do something. So we had to do an inward 1.5. And those of you who don't know what an inward is, you go off the board forward, and then you end up coming back facing the board, so your head is facing the board, and then you do 1.5 somersaults, and I could only do it in tuck position. So I would throw it all of the time, and just smack on the water. But I served as an inspiration for the guys who were actually good divers, because if I wouldn't have been that stupid to just give it a shot, we all just would have been like, oh, I don't want to do it. But they had me, and they would say, just ask Guy to do it. He'll try it. And I did. And I sucked. I was terrible. I think I got the letter that year by 3 points, just barely. It was almost embarrassing, competing at meets, but I didn't care. I had a goal, and I said, this is what I want. And I did it. We even had to wear Speedo bathing suits back then in 1981. So talk about embarrassing. And that's a lot of your body exposed, when you hit that water, flat on like that. So I think, the only thing that I want to continue to say is that we owe this to the world. We cannot water down who we are or what we are. I think that it's really about a feeling, that feeling that you get. Think about the times that you're feeling the best that you've ever felt. Think about that. I have ups and downs. I really do. And those downs are deep, where I'm beating myself up. And the downs, if I would have stuck with, I would have never been talking to you right now, because I would have talked myself out of it. Who the hell do you think you are? Why do you think you could do something like this? And I don't even know where it's going to go, and I don't even care. Again, this is for me. If anybody else listens to it, that's a bonus. If anybody gets anything from what I'm saying, that's a bonus. If I can help one person, then I am ecstatic. 3, 7, 20 people have listened to the podcasts, and they tell me about it. It hits me right here. I love it. And I know they're not bullshitting me. I know they're telling me the truth, and they're being honest. And I love that. So to me, that's what we owe the world. That's what we owe ourselves, to be the best us we can be. And intensity is a part of that. So maybe it doesn't manifest in the same way. Maybe you can't, own the stage, go in and command a room, make people laugh, whatever it is, but you've got something. And it is your responsibility to figure out what that gift is and share that gift with the world. And that's what I'm talking about as far as intensity, or that special thing that you have. You, number one, have to figure out what it is, because we all have it. Number two, you need to be brave enough to develop it. And then number three, you need to share it. You owe it to the world. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your kids. You owe it to your wife. You owe it to your boss. You owe it to everybody. Show up. Show up every single day and put your signature on that, whatever it is that you're doing, and be proud of it. One thing I had a conversation with my middle schoolers 2 years ago, and, we were talking about the word pride. I was amazed. None of them could come up with something that they were proud of. Proud of. I'm proud of making a good, tight bed, simple things. But, there was nothing that they didn't understand the word proud. I had to explain it to them. I had to define it. for them. That speaks volumes, I think, for today's youth. So I just want to end with saying that this was a rant. It wasn't really anything more than talking about our gifts and being able to share them. Ask yourself, what do you have inside of you that makes you special? Don't be modest. I would share a lot of stories, about what people have said about me in my small little bubble. But I know it's true. I have something to offer. I really do. And when Chris and I talked about doing this podcast, that's exactly what we said. If you go back to the history and the mission, that's what I was talking about. I feel like I have something that I can share with people. And I love when I talk and people are nodding their head like this, and not a bullshit nod, a nod like, yeah. Or I say something the way that they've always wanted to say it. And they're like, geez, yeah, I feel that. I totally get that. And that's where we have to be, men sticking together, helping each other through this thing called life. It's not an easy thing. We have a lot of expectations on us, but don't let society decide what you need to be. Listen to yourself, listen to the inner voice, and do what you need to do when you need to do it. The world needs you. So you're going to show up or not. America, that's how I see it. And I'm sticking to it. I'll see you next time.